We'll come on in, sit back, relax, and then as we continue with Dracula by Bram Stoker, picking up with chapter 14. Mina Harker's journal. September 23rd. Jonathan is better after a bad night. So glad that he has plenty of work to do, for that keeps his mind off the terrible things, and oh, rejoice that he is now not weighed down with the responsibility of his new position. I knew he would be true to himself, and now how proud I am to see my Jonathan rising to height of his advancement and keeping pace in all ways with the duties that come upon him. He will be away all day till late, for he said he could not lunch at home. My household work is done, so I shall take his foreign journal and lock myself up in my room and read it. 24th of September. I hadn't the heart to write last night. That terrible record of Jonathan's upset me so. Dear, how he must have suffered. Be true or only imagination. I wonder if there is any truth in it at all. Did he get his brain fever then write all those terrible things? Or had he some cause for it all? So she'll never know, for I dare not open the subject to him. Yet the man we saw yesterday, he seemed quite certain of him, poor fellow. I suppose it was the funeral upset him and sent his mind back on some train of thought. He believes in all himself. On our wedding day, he said, unless some solemn duty come upon me to go back to the bitter hours, sleep or wake, mad or sane. There seems to be through it all some thread of continuity. That fearful Count was coming to London, if it should be, and he came to London with its teeming millions. There may be a solemn duty, and if it come, we must not shrink from it. So be prepared. I shall get my typewriter this very hour and begin transcribing. Then we shall be ready for other eyes if required. And if it be wanted, then perhaps, if I'm ready, poor Jonathan may not be upset, for I can speak for him and never let him be troubled or worried with it at all. If ever Jonathan quite gets over the nervousness, he may want to tell me of it all, and I can ask him questions and find out things and see how I may comfort him. A letter. Van Helsing to Mrs. Harker. 24th of September. Confidence. Dear Madam, I pray you to pardon my writings. Is that I am so a friend as that I sent to you sad news of Miss Lucy Asteria's death by the kindness of Lord Godalming. I'm empowered to read her letters and papers, for I am deeply concerned about certain matters vitally important. Then I find some letters from you, which show how great friends you were and how you love her. Madame Mina, by that love I implore you help me. It is for others' good that I ask to redress great wrong, to lift much and terrible troubles that may be more great than you know. May it be that I see you, can trust me, friend of Dr. John Seward and of Lord Godalming, that was author of Miss Lucy. I must keep it private for the present from all. I should come to Exeter to see you once, if you tell me I'm privileged to come, and where and when. I implore your pardon, madame. I have read your letters to poor Lucy, and know how good you are and how your husband suffer. So I pray you, if it may be, enlighten him not, lest it may harm. Again your pardon, and forgive me, Van Helsing. Telegram Mrs. Harker to Van Helsing. 25th of September. Come today by 10:15 train if you can catch it. Can see you any time you call. Wilhelmina Parker. Mina Harker's journal. 25th September. Cannot help feel terribly excited as the time draws near for the visit of Dr. Van Helsing. For somehow I expect that it will throw some light upon Jonathan's sad experience as he attended poor Lucy in her last illness. He can tell me all about her. That's the reason of his coming. It's concerning Lucy and her sleepwalking and not about Jonathan. Then I shall never know the real truth now. Still I am. Journal got hold of my imagination and tinges everything with something of its own color. Of course it is about Lucy. That habit came back to the poor dear, and that awful night on the cliff must have made her ill. It's forgotten in my affairs how ill she was afterwards. She must have told him of her sleepwalking adventure on the cliff, and that I knew all about it. And now he wants to tell me what I know so that he may understand. I hope I did right in not saying anything of it to Mrs. Stenra. I should never forgive myself if any act of mine weren't, or even a negative one, brought harm on poor Lucy. I hope, too, Dr. Van Helsing will not blame me. I've had so much trouble and anxiety of late that I cannot bear him just at present. I suppose a cry does all good at times, clears the air as other rain does. Perhaps it was reading that journal yesterday that upset me, and then Jonathan went away this morning to stay away from me a whole day and night, the first time we have parted since our marriage. I do hope the dear fellow will take care of himself and that nothing will occur to upset him. It is 2 o'clock, and the doctor will be here now. Nothing of Jonathan's journal unless he asks me. So glad I have typewritten out my own journal. In case he asks about Lucy, I can hand it to him. Will save much questioning. Later. He has come and gone. What a strange meeting. What makes my heart whirl around? I feel like one in a dream. Can it be possible, or even a part of it? If I had not read Jonathan's journal first, I should never have accepted even a possibility. Poor dear Jonathan. I must have suffered. Please, the good God, all this may not upset him again. I should try to save him from it. But it may be even a consolation and it helped him. Terrible though it be and awful in its consequences to know for certain that his eyes and ears and brain did not deceive him. That is all true. It may be that it is the doubt which haunts him. That when the doubt is removed, no matter waking or dreaming, no matter which, waking or dreaming, may prove the truth, he'll be more satisfied and better able to bear the shock. Dr. Van Helsing must be a good man as well as clever one if he is Arthur's friend and Dr. Seward's, and if they brought him all the way from Holland to look after Lucy. I feel from having seen him that he is good and kind and of a noble nature. When it comes tomorrow, I shall ask him about Jonathan. God, all this sorrow and anxiety may lead to a good end. To think I would like to practice interviewing. Jonathan's friend on the Exeter News told him that memory is everything in such work. He would have put down exactly almost every word spoken, even if he had to refine some of it afterwards. Here was a rare interview. I shall try to record it verbatim. It was 2:30 when the doctor came. I took my courage a deux mains and waited. In a few minutes, Mary opened the door and announced Dr. Van Helsing. I rose and bowed, and he came towards me, a man of medium height, strongly built, with shoulders set back on a broad, deep chest and a neck well balanced on the trunk, as the head is on the neck. The poise of the head strikes me at once as indicative of thought and power. The head is noble, well-sized, broad and large behind the ears. The face clean-shaven, shows a hard, square chin, a large, resolute, mobile mouth, a good-sized nose, rather straight, but with quick, sensitive nostrils that seem to broaden as the big bushy brows come down and the mouth tightens. The forehead is broad and fine, rising at first almost straight and then sloping back above 2 bumps or ridges wide apart. Such a forehead that the reddish hair cannot possibly tumble over it, but falls naturally back into the sides. Big dark blue eyes are set widely apart, and are quick and tender or stern with the man's moods, he said to me. Mrs. Harker, is it not? I bowed assent. That was Miss Mina Murray, again I assented. It is Miss Mina Murray that I come to see, that friend of that poor dear child Lucy Westenra, Madame Mina. It is on account of the dead that I come. Sir, I said, could have no better claim on me than that you were a friend and helper of Lucy Westenra. Held out my hand, he took it and said tenderly, Madame Mina, I know that a friend of that poor little girl must be good, but I had yet to learn. He finished his speech with a courtly bow, asked him what it was that he wanted to see me out, so at once began, I have read your letters, Miss Lucy, forgive me. To begin inquire somewhere, and there was none to ask. I know that you were with her at Whitby. She sometimes kept a diary, and you need not look surprised. Madame Mina, it was begun after you had left it, and was an imitation of you. And in that diary she traces by inference certain things to a sleepwalking which she put down that you saved her. In great perplexity, then I come to you, and I ask you out of your kind to tell me of all that you can remember. I can tell you, I think, Dr. Van Helsing, all about it. Then you have good memory for facts, for details. 'Tis not always so with the young ladies. No, doctor, but I wrote it all down at the time. I can show it to you if you like. Ah, Madame Mina, I will be grateful. You will do me much favor. Could not resist the temptation of mystifying him a bit. I suppose it is some taste of the original apple that remains still in our mouths, so I handed shorthand diary. He took it with a grateful bow and said, "May I read it?" "If you wish," I answered as demurely as I could. He opened it, and for an instant his face fell. Then he stood up and bowed. "So clever woman," he said. "I knew long that Mr. Jonathan was a man of much thankfulness, but see, his wife the good things, and will not so much honor me and so help me to read for me. Alas, I know not the shorthand." At this time my little joke was over. I was almost ashamed, so I took the typewriter cotton from my work basket and handed it to him. I said, "Could not help it, but I've been thinking that at least that you wish to ask, so that I might have time to wait, not on my account. Because I know your time is precious, I have written it out on the typewriter for you." Cyclist, "So good," he said. "Now, I want to ask you some things when I have read." "By all means," I said. "Read over it whilst I order lunch, and then you can ask me questions while we eat." He bowed and settled himself in a chair with his back to the light. I'm so absorbed in the papers, whilst I went to see after lunch, chiefly in order that he might not be disturbed. When I came back, I found him walking hurriedly up and down the room, his face all ablaze with excitement. He rushed up to me and took me by both hands. "Madame Mina, can I say I owe you? This paper is a sunshine. It opens the gate to me. I am dazed, I am dazzled with so much light, and yet clouds roll in behind the light every time, but that you cannot comprehend. But I am grateful to you, you so clever woman. Madame," he said this very simply, "if our Abraham von Helsing can do anything for you or yours, trust you will let me know. Be pleasure and delight if I may serve you as a friend. But all I have ever learned, all I can ever do, shall be for you and those you love. There are darknesses in life, and there are lights. You are one of the lights. You will have a happy life and a good life, and your husband will be blessed in you." "Do you praise me too much, and you don't know me?" "Not know you. I, who am old and have studied all my life men and women. I, who have made my specialty the brain and all that belongs to him, and all that follow from him. And I have read your diary that you have so goodly written for me, that breathes out truth in every line. I, who have read your so sweet letter to poor Lucy of your marriage and your trust, not know you. Mina, good women tell all their lives, and by day and by hour and by minute, such things that angels can read. Only men who wish to know have in something of angel's eyes. Your husband is noble nature, and you are noble too, for you trust, and trust cannot be where there is mean nature. And your husband, tell me of him. Is he quite well? Is all that fever gone? And is he headstrong and hearty?" I saw here on opening and about Jonathan said he was almost recovered, but he has been greatly upset by Mr. Hawkins' death. "Ah, yes, I know. I've read your last 2 letters. Went on, set from, but when we were in town Thursday, he had a sort of shock." "A shock? And after brain fever so soon. It's not good. What kind of shock was it?" "He thought he saw someone who recalled something terrible, something which led to his brain fever. The whole thing seemed to overwhelm me in a rush. The pity for Jonathan, the horror which he experienced, the whole fearful mystery of his diary, the fear that brooding over me ever since, all came in a tumult. I was hysterical, self on my knees, and held up my hand to him, implored him to make my husband well again. And then raised and made me sit on the sofa and sat by me. He held my hand in his and said to me with such infinite sweetness, 'My life is a barren and lonely one, and so full of work that I have not time for friendships, since I have been summoned to here by my friend John Seward, who known so many good people and in such nobility that I feel more than ever has grown with my advancing years the loneliness of my life. Believe me then, I come here full of respect for you, and you have given me hope. Hope, not in what I am seeking, but there are good women still left to make life happy. Good women whose lives and whose truths may make good lesson for the children that are to be. I'm glad that I may here be of some use to you, for if your husband suffer, he suffer within the range of my study and experience. I promise you that I will gladly do all for him that I can, all to make his life strong and manly, and your life a happy one. Now you must eat. You are overwrought and perhaps over-anxious. Husband Jonathan would not like to see you so pale. And what he like not where he loves. He's not to his good. Therefore, for his sake, you must eat and smile. Told me about Lucy, so we shall not speak of it, lest it distress. I shall stay in Exeter tonight, for I want to think much over what you have told me, and what I have thought. I will ask you questions, if I may. And then, too, you will tell me of your husband Jonathan's troubles so far as you can. Not yet. You must eat now. Afterwards you shall tell me all. When we went to the drawing room, he said to me, "And now tell me all about him." Speaking to this great learned man, I began to fear that he would think me a weak fool, and Jonathan a madman. That journal is all so strange, and I hesitated to go on. But he was so sweet and kind, and he promised to help, and I trusted him, so I said, "Helsing, to tell you is so queer that you must not laugh at me or my husband. I've been since yesterday in a sort of fever of doubt. You must be kind to me, and not think me foolish that I even believe some very strange things." Assured me by his manner as well as his words, which when he said, "Dear, if you only know how strange is the matter regarding why I'm here, it is you who would laugh. I have learned not to think little of anyone's belief, no matter how strange it may be. I have tried to keep an open mind, and it is not the ordinary things of life that could close it, but the strange things, the extraordinary things, the things that make one doubt if they be mad or sane." Thank you 1,000 times. Taking a weight off my mind. You'll let me. I shall give you a paper to read. It's long, but I have typewritten out. It will tell you my trouble and Jonathan's. It's the copy of his journal when abroad, and all that happened. I dare not say anything of it. You will read for yourself and judge. And then, when I see you, perhaps you'll be very kind and tell me what you think. "I promise," he said as I gave him papers. "Shall in the morning as soon as I can. Come to see you and your husband if I may. Jonathan will be here at 11:30, and you must come to lunch with us and see him then. You could catch the quick 3:34 train, which will leave you at Paddington before 8. Surprised at my knowledge of the trains offhand. But he does not know that I have made up all the trains to and from Exeter, so that I might help John in case he is in a hurry." So he took the papers with him and went away. I sat here thinking I don't know what. Letter. By hand. Van Helsing to Mrs. Harker. 25th of September, 6 o'clock. Dear Madame Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. You may sleep without doubt. Strange and terrible as it is true. I will pledge my life on it. It may be worse for others, but for him and you there is no dread. He is a noble fellow, and let me tell you from experience of men, that one who would do as he did and going down all that wall into that room, aye, and going a second time, is not one to be injured in permanence by a shock. His brain and his heart are all right, this I swear, before I've even seen him. So be at rest. I shall have much to ask him of other things. I am blessed that today I came to see you, for I have learned all at once so much that again I am dazzled more than ever, and I must think. Yours the most faithful, Abraham Van Helsing. Letter. Miss Mina Harker to Van Helsing, 25th of September, 6:30 p.m. My dear Dr. Van Helsing, 1,000 times for your kind letter, which has taken a great weight off my mind. Yet if it be true, what terrible things there are in the world, and what an awful thing if that man, the monster, be really in London. I fear to think. I have this moment whilst writing had a wire from Jonathan, saying that he leaves by the 6:25 tonight from Launceston, and will be here at 10:18, so that I shall have no fear tonight. Will you therefore, instead of lunching with us, please come to breakfast at 8 o'clock? If this be not too early for you, you can get away if you are in a hurry by the 10:30 train, which will bring you to Paddington by 2:35. Do not answer this, as I shall take it that, if I do not hear, you will come to breakfast. Believe me, your faithful and grateful friend, Mina Harker. Jonathan Harker's Journal, 26th of September. I thought never to write in this diary again, but the time has come. When I got home last night, Mina had supper ready. When we had she told me of Van Helsing's visit, and having given me the 2 diaries copied out, of how anxious she had been about me. She showed me in the doctor's letters that all I wrote was true. It seems to have made a new man of me. It was the doubt as to the reality of the whole thing that knocked me over. I felt impotent, and in the dark and distrustful. But now that I know, I'm not afraid even of the Count. He has succeeded after all then in his design in getting to London, and it was he I saw. He has got younger, and how? Van Helsing is the man to unmask him and hunt him out. If he is anything like what Mina says. We sat late and talked it over. Mina is dressing, and I shall call at the hotel in a few minutes and bring him over. He was, I think, surprised to see me. When I came into the room when he was and introduced myself, he took me by the shoulder and turned my face round to the light, said after a sharp scrutiny, "But Madame Mina told me you were ill, that you had a shock." So funny to hear my wife called Madame Mina. With this kindly, strong-faced old man, I smiled and said, "I was ill. I have had a shock, but you have cured me already." "And how?" "By your letter to Mina last night. I was in doubt, and then everything took a hue of unreality. I did not know what to trust, even the evidence of my own senses. Not knowing what to trust, I do not know what to do, and so had only to keep on working in, which had hitherto been the groove of my life. The groove ceased to avail me, and I mistrusted myself. Doctor, you don't know what it is to doubt everything, even yourself." "Oh, you don't. You cut it with eyebrows like yours." He seemed pleased and laughed as he said, "So, you're a physiognomist. I learned more here with each hour. I am with so much pleasure coming to you to breakfast, and so, sir, pardon me praise for an old man, but you are blessed with your wife." I would listen to him go on praising Mina for a day, so I simply nodded and stood silent. "She is one of God's women, fashioned by his own hand to show us men and other women that there is a heaven where we can enter, and that its light can be here on earth. So true, so sweet, so noble, so little an egoist, and that, let me tell you, is much in this age so skeptical and selfish. You, sir, I've read all the letters to poor Miss Lucy. Some of them speak of you, so I know you since some days from the knowing of others. But I have seen your true self since last night. You will give me your hand, will you not? And let us be friends all our lives." We shook hands, and he was so earnest and so kind that it made me quite choky. "And now," he said, "I ask for some more help. I have a great task to do, and at the beginning it is to know. You can help me here. Can you tell me what went before you going to Transylvania? Later on I may ask more help, and of a different kind, but at first this will do." "Look here, sir," I said. "Does what you have to do concern the Count?" "It does," he said solemnly. "Then I am with you heart and soul. As you go by the 10:30 train, you will not have time to read them, but I shall get the bundle of papers. You can take them with you and read them in the train." After breakfast I saw him to the station. Where we were parting, he said, "Perhaps you will come to town if I send you, and take Madame Mina too." "We shall both come when you will," I said. I had got him the morning papers, and the London papers of the previous night, and while we were talking at the carriage window, waiting for the train, he was turning them over. His eyes suddenly seemed to catch something in one of them. The Westminster Gazette. I knew it by the color, and he grew quite white. He read something intently, groaning to himself, Mein Gott, so soon, so soon." I do not think he remembered me at the moment. Just then the whistle blew, and the train moved off. This recalled him to himself, and he leaned out the window and waved his hand. Well, out. "Love to Madame Mina. I shall write so soon as ever I can." Dr. Seward's Diary, 26th of September. Truly there is no such thing as finality. But a week since I said finis, yet here I am starting fresh again, or rather going on with the record. Until this afternoon I had no cause to think of what is done. Renfield had become, to all intents, as sane as he ever was. He was already well ahead with his fly business, and had just started in the spider line also. So he had not been of any trouble to me. I had a letter from Arthur written on Sunday. From it I gathered that he is bearing up wonderfully well. Quincy Morris is with him, and that is much help, for himself is a bubbling well of good spirits. Quincy wrote me a line, too, and from what I hear, Arthur is beginning to recover something of his old buoyancy. So as to them all, my mind is at rest. To myself, I was settling down to my work with the enthusiasm which I used to have for it. I might fairly have said that the wound which poor Lucy left on me has become sick. Caesarized. That's not how you would spell cauterized, would it be?
Customize my car insurance, so I only pay for what I need. What a great day.
Cicatrized.
Okay, it is cicatrized. Okay. Somehow I feel these are some words that are be obscure even for the time. Everything, however, now reopened, and what it is to be the end, God only knows. I have an idea that Van Helsing thinks he knows too, but he will only let out enough at a time to whet curiosity. He went to Exeter yesterday and stayed there all night. Today he came back and almost bounded in the room at about 5:30 o'clock, and thrust last night's Westminster Gazette into my hand. What do you think of that? He asked as he stood back and folded his arms. I looked over the paper. I really did not know what he meant, but he took it from me and pointed out a paragraph about children being decoyed away at Hampstead. It did not convey much to me until I reached a passage where it described small puncture wounds at their throats. An idea struck me, and I looked up. Well, he said, it is like poor Lucy's. And what do you make of it? Simply that there is some cause in common. Whatever it was that injured them has injured her has injured them. I did not quite understand his answer. That is true indirectly, but not directly. What do you mean, Professor? I asked. I was a little inclined to take his seriousness lightly, for after all 4 days of rest and freedom from burning, harrowing anxiety helped to restore one's spirits. But when I saw his face, it sobered me. Never, even in the midst of our despair about poor Lucy, had he looked more stern. Tell me, I said. I can answer no opinion. I do not know what to think. I have no data on which to found a conjecture. Do you mean to tell me, friend John, that you have no suspicion as to what poor Lucy died of? Not after all the hints given, not only by events but by me. A nervous prostration following a great loss or waste of blood. And how was the blood lost or wasted? I shook my head, stepped over and sat down beside me and went on. You are a clever man, friend John. You reason well and your wit is bold, but you are too prejudiced. You do not let your eyes see nor your ears hear, and that which is outside your daily life is not of account to you. Do not think that there are things which you cannot understand, and yet which are that some people see things others cannot. But there are things old and new which must not be contemplated by men's eyes, because they know or think they know some things which other men have told them. It's the fault of our science that it wants to explain all. If it explain not, then it says there is nothing to explain. But yet we see around us every day the growth of new beliefs, which think themselves new, and yet which are yet but the old, which pretend to be young, like the fine ladies at opera. I suppose you do not believe in corporal transference? No. Nor in materialization? No. Nor in astral bodies? No. Reading of thought? No. Nor in hypnotism? Yes, I said. Charcot has proved that pretty well. He smiled as he went on. Then you are satisfied as to it, yes? And of course then you understand how it can act. You can follow the mind of the great Charcot. Alas that he is no more into the very soul of the patient that he influenced. No, then friend John, am I to take that you simply accept fact, and are satisfied to let from premise to conclusion be a blank? No, then tell me, for I'm a student of the brain, how you accept hypnotism and reject the thought reading. Let me tell you, my friend, there are things done today in electrical science which would have been deemed holy by the very man who discovered electricity, who would themselves not so long ago have been burned as wizards. There are always mysteries in life. Why was it that Methuselah lived 900 years, and old Parr 169, and yet that poor Lucy with 4 men's blood in her poor veins could not live even 1 day? For, had she lived 1 more day, we could save her. Do you know all the mystery of life and death? Do you know the altogether of comparative anatomy, and can we say wherefore the qualities of brute are in some men and not in others? Can you tell me why, when other spiders die small and soon, that one great spider lived centuries in the tower of the old Spanish church? He grew and grew till on descending, he could drink the oil of all the church lamps. Tell you why in Pampas and elsewhere there are bats that come out at night and open the veins of cattle and horses and suck dry their veins. On some islands of western seas there are bats which hang on trees all day, and those who have seen describe as like giant nuts or pods, that when the sailors sleep on the necks because that is hot, fly down on them, then in the morning are found dead men, white as even Miss Lucy was. Good God, Professor, said String Up. Do you mean to tell me that Lucy was bitten by such a bat? That such a thing is here in London in the 19th century? He waved his hands for silence and went on. Can you tell me why the tortoise lives more long than generations of men? Why the elephant goes on and on till he has seen dynasties? And why the parrot never die only a bite of cat or dog or other complaint? Can you tell me why men believe in all ages and places that there are men and women who cannot die? We all know, because science has vouched for a fact, that there have been toads shut up in rocks for thousands of years, shut in one so small hole that only hold him since the youth of the world. Can you tell me how the Indian fakir can make himself to die and have been buried, and his grave sealed and corn sowed on it, and then the corn reaped and be cut and sowed and reaped and cut again, then come up and take away the unbroken seal, and there lie the Indian fakir not dead, but that rise up and walk amongst them as before. Here I interrupted him. I was getting bewildered. He so crowded on my mind his lists of nature's eccentricities and possible impossibilities that my imagination was getting fired. I had a dim idea that he was teaching me some lesson as long ago he used to do in his study at Amsterdam, but he used them to tell me the thing, so that I could have the object of thought in my mind of the time. But now I was without his help, yet I wanted to follow him, so I said, Professor, you're your pet student again. Tell me the thesis, so that I may apply your knowledge as you go on. At present, I'm going in my mind from point to point as a madman, and not a sane one. Follows an idea. I feel like a novice lumbering through a bog in the midst, jumping from one tussock to another in a mere blind effort to move on without knowing where I'm going. That is a good image, he said. Shall I tell you? My thesis is this: I want you to believe. To believe what? To believe in things that you cannot. Let me illustrate. At once of an American who so defined faith, that faculty which enables us to believe things which we know to be untrue. For one, I follow that man. He meant that we shall have open mind, not let a little bit of truth check the rush of the big truth, like a small rock does a railway truck. We get the small truth first. Good. We shall keep him when we value him. But all the same, we must not let him think himself all the truth in the universe. Then you want me not to let some previous conviction ignore the receptivity of my mind with regard to some strange matter. Do I read your lesson all right? Ah, you're my favorite pupil still. It's worth to teach you. Now that you are willing to understand, you have taken the first step to understand. You think then that all holes in children's throats were made by the same that made the holes in Miss Lucy? I suppose so. And said, follow me. Then you are wrong. Oh, but it were so, but alas, no. It is worse, far, far worse. In God's name, Professor Van Helsing, what do you mean? I cried. He threw himself with a despairing gesture into a chair, and placed his elbows on the table, uncovering his face with his hands as he spoke. They were made by Miss Lucy. Chapter 15. Dr. Seward's diary continued. For a while, sheer anger mastered me. It was as if he had during her life struck Lucy on the face. I smote the table hard and rose up as I said to him, Dr. Van Helsing, are you mad? His head and looked at me. Somehow the tenderness of his face calmed me at once. What I were, he said. Madness were easy to bear compared with truth like this. My friend, why think you that I go so far round? Why take you so long to say so simple a thing? Is it because I hate you and have hated you all my life? Was it because I wished to give you pain? Is it that I wanted now so late revenge for the time when you saved my life and from a fearful death? No, forgive me, said I. He went on, my friend, it's because I wish to be gentle in breaking it to you. For I know you have loved that so sweet lady, but even yet, I expect you to believe. It's so hard to accept at once any abstract truth that we may doubt such to be possible when we have always believed the no of it. It is more hard still to accept so sad a concrete truth. Such a one as Miss Lucy, tonight I go to prove it. Dare you come with me? This staggered me. A man does not like to prove such a truth. Byron expected from the category jealousy, and proved the very truth he most abhorred. He saw my hesitation and spoke. The logic is simple. No madman's logic this time, jumping from tussock to tussock in a misty bog. If it not be true, then proof will be a relief. At worst it will not harm. If it be true, there is the dread. Yet every dread shall help my cause, for in it is some need of belief. Come, I tell you what I proposed. First, that we go off and see that child in the hospital. Dr. Vincent of the Norse Hospital, where the papers say the child is a friend of mine. I think of yours since you were in a class at Amsterdam. He will let 2 scientists see his case, if he will not let 2 friends. Shall tell him nothing, but only that we wish to learn, and then, he took a key from his pocket and held it up. And then we spend the night, you and I, in the churchyard where Lucy lies. This is the key that locked the tomb. I had it from the coffin man, and to give to Arthur. My heart sank within me. I felt that there was some fearful ordeal before us. I could do nothing, however, so I plucked up what my heart could, and said that we had better hasten. So, as the afternoon was passing, we found the child awake. It had had a sleep and taken some food. It was going on well. Dr. Vincent took the bandage from its throat and showed us the punctures. There was no mistaking the similarity to those which had been on Lucy's throat. They were smaller and the edges looked fresher. That was all. I asked Vincent to what he attributed them, and he replied that it must have been a bite of some animal, perhaps a rat. But for his own part, he was inclined to think it was one of the bats which are so numerous on the northern heights of London. But of so many harmless ones, he said, there may be some wild specimen from the south, or of a more malignant species. Some sailor may have brought one home, and it managed to escape, or even from the zoological gardens a young one may have got loose, or one be bred there, from a vampire. These things do occur, you know. Like 10 days ago, a wolf got out, and was, I believe, traced up in this direction. For a week after, the children were playing nothing but Red Riding Hood on the heath, in every alley and place, until this Bloofer lady scare came along. Since then, it has been quite a gala time with them. Even this poor little mite, when he woke up today, asked the nurse if he might go away. When she asked him why he wanted to go, he said he wanted to play with the Bloofer lady. I hope, said Van Helsing, when you are sending the child home, you will caution its parents to keep strict watch over it. These fancies to stray are most dangerous. The child will remain on another night. It will probably be fatal. In case, I suppose you will not let it away for some days. Certainly not. Not for a week at least, longer if the wound is not healed. Our visit to the hospital took more time than we had reckoned. The sun had dipped before we came out. When announcing how dark it was, he said, "There is not hurry. It is more late than I thought. Come, let us seek somewhere we may eat, and then we shall go on our way." We dined at Jack Straw's castle along with a little crowd of bicyclists and others who were genially noisy. About 10 o'clock we started from the inn. It was then very dark, and the scattered lamps made the darkness greater than we were once inside the individual radius. The professor had evidently noted the road we were to go up, for he went on unhesitatingly. But as for me, I was in a quite mix-up as to the locality. As we went further, we met fewer and fewer people, till at last we were somewhere surprised when we met even the patrol of our police going their usual suburban round. At least we reached the wall of the churchyard, which we climbed over with some little difficulty, for it was very dark, and the whole place seemed so strange to us. We found the Westenra tomb. The professor took the key, opened the creaky door, and standing back politely, but quite unconsciously, motioned me to precede him. There was such a delicious irony in the offer, and the courtliness of giving me preference on such a ghastly occasion. My companion followed me quickly, and cautiously drew the door to. I'm sorry, pardon me. I yawned. After carefully ascertaining that the lock was a falling and not a spring one, latter case we should have been in better plight. Then he fumbled in his bag, taking in a matchbox and a piece of candle, proceeded to make a light. The tomb in the daytime, and when wreathed in fresh flowers, had looked grim and gruesome enough. But now, some days afterward, when the flowers hung lank and dead, their whites turning to rust and their greens to browns, when the spider and the beetle had resumed their accustomed dominance, when the time-colored stone and dust-encrusted mortar and rusty dank iron and tarnished brass and clouded silver plating get back that feeble glimmer of a candle, the effect was more miserable and sordid than could have been imagined. It conveyed irresistibly the idea that life, animal life, was not the only thing which could pass away. Van Helsing went about his work systematically, holding his candle so that he could read the coffin plates. So holding it, the sperm dropped in the white patches, which congealed as they touched the metal. He made assurance of Lucy's coffin. Another search in his bag, and he took out a turn screw. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "To open the coffin. You shall yet be convinced." Straightway he began taking out the screws, and finally lifting off the lid, showing the casing of the lead beneath. The sight was almost too much for me. It seemed to be as much an affront to the dead as it would have been, stripped of her clothing, to her sleep while living. She took hold of his hand to stop him. He only said, "You shall see." And again fumbling his bag, he took out a tiny fret saw, striking the turn screw, which the lead with its swift downward stab, which made me wince. He made a small hole, which was, however, big enough to admit the point of the saw. I expected a rush of gas from the weak old corpse. We doctors who have had to study our dangers have to become accustomed to such things, and I drew back towards the door, but the professor never stopped for a moment. He sawed down a couple of feet along one side of the lead coffin, and then across and down the other side. Taking the edge of the loose flange, he bent it back towards the foot of the coffin, and holding up the candle in the aperture, motioned me to look. I drew near and looked. The coffin was empty, which was certainly a surprise to me, and gave me considerable shock. But Van Helsing was unmoved. He was now more sure than ever of his ground, was so emboldened to proceed in his task. "Are you satisfied now, friend John?" he asked. I felt all the dogged argumentativeness of my nature awakened within me as I answered him. I'm satisfied that Lucy's body is not in that coffin, but that only proves one thing. And what is that, friend John? That it is not here. That is good logic, he said, as far as it goes. But how can you account for it not being here? Perhaps a body snatcher, I suggested. Some of the Undertaker's people may have stolen it. I felt that I was speaking folly, and yet it was the only real cause I could suggest. The professor sighed. Well, he said, we must have more proof. Come with me. He put on the coffin lid again, gathered up all his things, and placed them in the bag, blew out the candle, and placed the candle also in the bag. He opened the door and went out. Behind us, he closed the door and locked it. He handed me the casing. You keep it? You had better be assured. I laughed. It was not a very cheerful laugh. Bound to say, as I don't wish him to keep it. The key is nothing, I said. There are many duplicates. Now it is not difficult to pick a lock of this kind. He said nothing, but put the key in his pocket. Then he told me to watch at one side of the churchyard, whilst he would watch at the other. I took up my place behind a yew tree, and I saw his dark figure move until the intervening headstones and trees hid him from my sight. That was a lonely vigil. Just after I had taken my place, I heard a distant clock strike 12, and in time came 1 and 2. I was chilled and unnerved, and angry at the professor for taking me on such an errand, and with myself for coming. I was too cold and too sleepy to be keenly observant, and not sleepy enough to betray my trust, so altogether I had a dreary, miserable time. Suddenly, as I turned around, I thought I saw something like a white streak moving between 2 dark yew trees at the side of the churchyard farthest from the tomb. At the same time, a dark mass moved from the professor's side of the ground, and hurriedly went towards it. Then I too moved, but I had to go around headstones and railed off tombs, and I stumbled over graves. The sky was overcast, and somewhere far off an early cock crew. A little ways off, beyond a line of scattering juniper trees which marked the pathway to the church, a white, dim figure flitted in the direction of the tomb. The tomb itself was hidden by the trees, and I could not see where the figure had disappeared. I heard the rustle of the actual movement where I first seen the white figure, and coming over, found the professor holding in his arms a tiny child. When he saw me, he held it out to me and said, "Are you satisfied now?" "No," I said in a way that I felt was aggressive. "Do you not see the child?" said Child. "Who brought it here, and is it wounded?" "We shall see," said the professor. When helpless, we took our way out the churchyard, carrying the sleeping child. We got a little distance away. We went to the clump of trees, struck a match, and looked at the child's throat, without a scratch or scar of any kind. "Is I right?" I asked triumphantly. "We were just in time," said the professor thankfully. Now to decide what we were to do with the child, so consulted about it. We'd take it to a police station when you had to give some account of our movements during the night. At least we should have had to make some statements as how we had come to find the child. So finally we decided we would take it to the heath. We heard a policeman coming. We would leave it where we could not fail to find it. We would then seek our way home as quickly as we could. All fell out well. At the edge of the Hampstead Heath, we heard a policeman's heavy tramp. Child on the pathway, we waited and watched until he saw it as he flashed his lantern to and fro. Placed in astonishment. Then we went away silently. By good chance, we got a cab near the Spaniards and drove to town. I cannot sleep, so I make this entry. But I must try to get a few hours' sleep, as Van Helsing is to call for me at noon. He insists I go with him on another expedition. 26th of September. It was 2 o'clock before we found a suitable opportunity for our attempt. The funeral held at noon was all completed, and the last stragglers at the mourners had taken themselves lazily away. When looking carefully from behind a clump of alder trees, we saw the sexton lock the gate. After him, we knew that we were safe till morning. Did we desire it? That we were safe till morning, did we desire it? But the professor told me that we should not want more than an hour at most. Again, I felt the horrible sense of the reality of things, in which any effort of imagination seemed out of place. And I realized distinctly the perils of the law which we were incurring in our unhallowed work. Besides, I felt it was all so useless. Outrageous as it was to open a leaden coffin to see if a woman dead nearly a week were really dead. Now seemed the height of folly to open the tomb again. We knew from the evidence of our own eyesight that the coffin was empty, I shrugged my shoulders, however, and rested silent, for Van Helsing had a way of going on his own road no matter who remonstrated. He took the key, opened the vault, again courteously motioned me to proceed. The place was not so gruesome as last night. How unutterably mean-looking when the sunshine streamed in. Van Helsing walked over to Lucy's coffin, and I followed. He bent over and again forced back the leaden flange, and a shock of surprise and dismay shot through me. There lay Lucy, seemingly just as we had seen her the night before a funeral. She was, if possible, more radiantly beautiful than ever, and I could not believe that she was dead. The lips were red, nay, redder than before, and on the cheek was a delicate bloom. "Is this a juggle?" I said to him. "Are you convinced now?" said the professor in response. As he spoke, he put it over his hand in a way that made me shudder, pulled back the dead lip, and showed the white teeth. "See," he went on. "They are even sharper than before, with this and this." Touched one of the canine teeth in the below. "The little children can be bitten. Are you of belief now, friend John?" Once more, argument of hostility woken within me. I could not accept such an overwhelming idea as he suggested. With an attempt to argue, of which I was at the moment ashamed, I said, "She may have been placed here since last night." "Indeed, that is so. And by whom?" "No, someone has done it. Yet she has been dead 1 week. Most people in that time would not look so." I had no answer for this, so was silent. Van Helsing did not seem to notice my silence. At any rate, he showed neither chagrin nor triumph. He was looking silently at the face of the dead woman, raising the eyelids and looking at the eyes, once more opening the lips and examining the teeth. Then he turned to me and said, "Here, there is one thing which is different from all recorded. Here is some dual life that is not as the common. She was bitten by the vampire when she was in a trance sleepwalking." You start. "You do not know that, friend John, but you shall know it later. And in trance, could he best come to take more blood? In trance she dies, and in trance she is undead too. So it is that she differ from all other. Usually when the undead sleep at home." As he spoke, he made a comprehensive sweep with his arm to designate whatever fire was home. "Their face show what they are, but this is so sweet that was when she not undead, she go back to the nothings of the common dead. There is no malign there, see? And it make hard that I must kill her in her sleep." This turned my blood cold and began to dawn upon me that I was accepting Van Helsing's theories. She was really dead. What was there of terror in the idea of killing her? He looked at me and evidently saw the change in my face, for he said almost joyously, "You believe now?" I answered, "Press me too hard all at once. But to accept, how will you do this bloody work?" "I shall cut off her head, and fill her mouth with garlic, and I shall drive a stake through her body." It made me shudder to think of so mutilating the body of the woman whom I had loved, yet the feeling was not so strong as I had expected. I was, in the fact, beginning to shudder at the presence of this being, this undead, as Van Helsing called it, and to loathe it. Is it possible that love is all subjective or all objective? I waited a considerable time for Van Helsing to begin, but he stood as if wrapped in thought. Presently he closed that catch of his bag with a snap and said, "Okay, we actually got to do an ad break, so we're going to do that, and then we'll be right back." Okay. Okay, we are back. Okay. I waited a considerable time for Van Helsing to begin, but he stood as if wrapped in thought. Presently, he closed the catch of his bag with a snap and said, I have been thinking and have made up my mind as to what is best. If I did simply follow my inclining, I would do it now. At this moment, what is to be done? But there are other things to follow, and things that are 1,000 times more difficult, and that, them, we do not know. This is simple. She has yet no life taken, though that is of time, and to act now would be to danger from her forever. But then we may have to warn Arthur, and how shall we tell him of this? If you who saw the wounds on Lucy's throat, and saw the wounds so similar at the child's at the hospital, if you who saw the coffin empty last night, and full today with a woman who have not changed only to be more rose and more beautiful in a whole week after she die, if you know of this, and know of the white figure last night that the child to the churchyard, and yet of your own senses you did not believe, how then can I expect Arthur, who know none of these things, to believe? He doubted just for me when I took. He doubted me when I took him for a kiss when she was dying. I know he has forgiven me because in some mistaken mighty I have done things that prevent him say goodbye as he ought, and he may think that in some more mistaken idea this one was buried alive, and that in most mistake of all we have killed her. He will then argue back that it is we, mistaken ones, that have killed her by our ideas, and so he will be much more unhappy always. Yet he never can be sure, and that is worst of all, and will sometimes think that she he loved was buried alive, and that will paint his dreams with horror of what she must have suffered again. He will think that we may be right, and that his so beloved was after all an undead. No, I told him once. Since then I learned much. Now since I know it is all true, 100,000 times more do I know that he must pass through the bitter waters to reach the sweet. He, poor fellow, must have 1 hour that will make the very face of heaven grow black to him. And then we can act for good all round and send him peace. My mind is made up. Let us go. You return for home tonight to your asylum, and see that all be well. As for me, I shall spend the night here in this churchyard, in my own way. Tomorrow night, you will come to me to the Berkeley Hotel at 10 o'clock. I shall send for Arthur to come too. Also that's a fine young man of America that gave his blood. Later, we shall all have work to do. I come with you so far as Piccadilly and there dine, for I must be back here before the sunset. So we locked the tomb and came away, and got over the wall of the churchyard, which is not much of a task, and drove back to Piccadilly. Note left by Van Helsing in his portmanteau. Berkeley Hotel, directed to John Seward, M.D., not delivered. 26th of September. Friend John, I write this in case anything should happen. I go alone to watch in that night churchyard. It pleases me that the undead, Miss Lucy, shall not leave tonight, that so on tomorrow night she may be more eager. Therefore, I shall fix some things she like not. Garlic and a crucifix, so seal up the door of the tomb. She is young as undead, and will heed. Moreover, these are only to prevent her coming out. They may not prevail on her wanting to get in, for then the undead is desperate, and must find the line of least resistance. Whatsoever it may be, I shall be at hand all the night from sunset till after sunrise. And if there be aught that may be learned, I shall learn it, from Miss Lucy or from her. I have no fear, but other to whom is there that she is undead. He have not the power to seek her tomb and find shelter. He is cunning, as I know from Mr. Jonathan, and from the way that all along he have fooled us when he played with us for Miss Lucy's life and we lost. And in many ways the undead are strong. He have always the strength in his hand of 20 men. Even we 4 who gave our strength to Miss Lucy is all to him. Besides, he can summon his wolf, and I know not what. So, if it be that he came hither on this night, he shall not find me. but none other shall until it be too late. But it may be that he will not attempt the place. There is no reason why he should. His hunting ground is more full of game than the churchyard, where the undead woman sleeps, and the one old man watch. Therefore, I shall write in this in case. Take the paper that are with this, the diaries of Huck and the rest, and read them. Then find this great undead and cut off his head, and burn his heart or drive a stake through it, that the world may rest from him. If it be so, farewell, Van Helsing. Dr. Seward's diary, 28th of September. It's wonderful what a good night's sleep will do for one. Yesterday I was almost willing to accept Van Helsing's monstrous ideas, but now they seem to start out lurid before me as outrages on common sense. I've no doubt that he believes it all. I wonder if his mind can become in any way unhinged. Surely there must be some of the rational explanation of all these mysterious things. Is it possible that the professor can have done it himself? He is so abnormally clever that if he went off his head, he would carry out his intent with regard to some fixed idea in a wonderful way. I am loath to think it. Indeed, it would be almost as great a marvel as the others to find that Van Helsing was mad. But anyhow, I wish to watch him carefully. I may get some light on the mystery. 29th of September, last night, a little before 10 o'clock. Arthur and Quincy came into Van Helsing's room. He told us that was all what he wanted to do, but especially addressing himself to Arthur, as if all our wills were centered in this. He began by saying that he hoped we would all come with him too, for, he said, it's a grave duty to be done here, or I'll doubtless surprise at my letter. This query was directly addressed to Lord Godalming. It's more, it rather upset me for a bit. There's been so much trouble around my house of late that I could do without any more. I've been curious too as to what you mean. Quincy and I have talked it over, but the more we talked, the more puzzled we got. Till now, I can say for myself, I'm about up a tree as to any meaning about it. As meaning about anything. Me too, said Quincy Morris laconically. Oh, said the professor. Then you are near the beginning, both of you. Then friend John here. He has to go a long way back before he can get so far as to begin. It was evident that he recognized my return to my old doubting frame of my mind by saying a word. Then he turned to the other two. He said with intense gravity, I want your permission to do what I think good is this night. It is, I know, much to ask, and therefore you know that what I propose to do, you will know, and only then, how much. Therefore, may I ask that you promise me in the dark, so that afterwards, though you may be angry with me for a time, I must not disguise from myself the possibility that such may be. You shall not blame yourselves for anything. That's a frank anyhow, broke in Quincy. I'll answer for the professor. I don't quite see his drift, but I swear he's honest, and that's good enough for me. I thank you, sir, said Van Helsing proudly. Done myself the honor of counting you one trusting friend, and such endorsement is dear to me. He held out a hand which Quincy took. Then Arthur spoke out. Van Helsing, I don't quite like to buy a pig in a poke, as they say in Scotland. And if it be anything in which my honor as a gentleman or my faith as a Christian is concerned, I cannot make such a promise. If you can assure me that what you intend does not violate either of these two, then I give my consent at once, though for the life of me I cannot understand what you are driving at. I accept your limitations, said Van Helsing. All I ask of you is that if you feel it necessary to condemn any act of mine, you will first consider it well and be satisfied that it does not violate your reservations. Agreed, said Arthur. That is only fair. Now that the populares are over, may I ask what we are to do? I want you to come with me, and come in secret to the churchyard at Kingstead. Arthur's face fell as he said it in an amazed sort of way. Where? Poor Lucy is buried. The professor bowed. Arthur went on. And where, then? To the tomb. Arthur stood up. Professor, are you in earnest, or is it some monstrous joke? Pardon me. I see that you are in earnest. He sat down again, but I could see that he sat firmly and proudly, as one who is and as one who has dignity. Their silence, yes again, and when the tomb... to open the coffin. This is too much, yes, Imralur again. I'm willing to be patient in all things that are reasonable. But in this desecration of the grave of one who... fairly choked with indignation. The professor, looking pity at him. If I could spare you one pang, my poor friend, he said, God knows I would. But this night our feet must tread in thorny paths, or later, and forever. The feet you love must walk in paths of flame. Arthur looked up with set white face and said, Take care, sir, take care. Would it not be well to hear what I have to say, said Van Helsing, and then you will at least know the limit of my purpose. Shall I go? That's fair enough, said Morris. For pause, Van Helsing went on heavily with effort. Miss Lucy is dead, is it not so? Yes. Then there can be no wrong to her. But if she be not dead... Arthur jumped to his feet. Good God, he cried. What do you mean? Has there been any mistake? Has she been buried alive? He groaned in anguish that could not soften. I did not say that she was alive, my child. I did not think. I go no further than to say she might be undead. Undead? But alive? What do you mean? Is this all a nightmare? What is it? There are mysteries which men can only guess, which age by age they may only solve in part. Believe me, we are now on the verge of one, but I have not done. May I cut off the head of Miss Lucy? Heavens and earth, no, cried Arthur in his profession. Not for the wide world will I consent to any mutilation of her dead body. Van Helsing, you try me too far. What have I done to you that you should torture me so? Did that poor sweet girl do to you that you want to cast such dishonor on her grave? Are you mad that you speak of such things? Or am I mad to listen to them? Don't dare think more of such a desecration. I shall not give my consent to anything you do. I have a duty to protect your grave from outrage. My God, I shall do it. When Helsing rose up from where he had all the time been seated and said, gravely and sternly, My Lord Godalming, I too have a duty to do. A duty to others, a duty to you, a duty to the dead, and by God I shall do it. All I ask you now is that you come with me, that you look and listen. And if when later I make the same request, you do not be more eager for its fulfillment, even then I shall do my duty, whatever it may seem to be. And then, to follow your lordship wishes, I shall hold myself at your disposal to render an account to you, when and where you will. His voice broke a little, and went on with a voice full of pity. But I beseech you, do not go forth in anger with me. A long life of acts which were often not pleasant to do, and which sometimes did wring my heart. I have never had so heavy a task as now. Believe me that if time comes for you to change your mind towards me, one look from you will wipe away all this sad hour. For I would do what a man can to save you from sorrow. Just think, for why should I give myself so much labor and so much of sorrow? I have come here from my own land, to do what I can of good. At the first to please my friend John, and then to help a sweet young lady whom too I came to love. For her, I am ashamed to say so much, but I say it in kindness. I gave what you gave, the blood of my veins. I gave it. I, who was not like you, her lover, but only her physician and her friend. I gave her my nights and days before death, after death, and in my death can do her good even now. When she is the dead undead, she shall have it freely, he said with a very grave, sweet pride, and Arthur was much affected by it. He took the old man's hand and said in a broken voice, It's hard to think of it, and I can not understand, but I shall go with you and wait. Chapter 16. Dr. Seward's diary continued. It was just a quarter before 12 o'clock when we got into the churchyard over the low wall. The night was dark with occasional gleams of moonlight between the dents of the heavy clouds that scudded across the sky. We all kept somehow close together, with Van Helsing slightly in front as he led the way. When he had come close to the tomb, I looked well at Arthur, for I feared that proximity to a place laden with so much sorrow of memory could upset him, but he bore himself well. I took it that the very mystery of the proceeding was in some way a counteract to his grief. The professor unlocked the door, and seeing a natural hesitation amongst us for various reasons, solved the difficulty by entering first himself. The rest of us followed. Closed the door. He then lit a dark lantern and pointed to a coffin. Arthur stepped forward, hesitating. Helsing said to me, "You were with me here yesterday. Was the body of Miss Lucy in that coffin?" "It was." Professor turned to the rest, saying, "You here, and yet there was no one who does not believe with me." He took a screwdriver and again took off the lid of the coffin. Arthur looked on, very pale but silent. Was moved. He stepped forward. He evidently did not know that there was a leaden coffin, or at any rate, had not thought of it. When he saw the rent of the lead, the blood rushed to his face, sent as quickly as he fell away again, so that he remained of a ghastly whiteness. He was still silent. Van Helsing forced back the leaden flange. We all looked and recoiled. The coffin was empty. Several minutes no one spoke a word. The silence was broken by Quincy Morse. "Professor, I answered for you. Your word is all I want. I wouldn't ask such a thing ordinarily. So dishonor you and to imply it out, but this is a mystery that goes beyond any honor dishonor. Is this your doing? I swear to you, but all that I hold sacred, that I have not removed or touched her. What happened was this. 2 nights ago, my friend Seward and I came here with good purpose, believe me. I opened the coffin, which was then sealed up, and we found it as now, empty. We then waited, and saw something white come through the trees. The next day we came here in daytime, and she lay there. Did she not, friend John?" "Yes." "That night, you're just in time. One more so small child was missing, and we find it, thank God, unharmed amongst the graves. Yesterday I came here before sundown, for at sundown the undead can move. I waited here all night till the sun rose, but I saw nothing. It was most probably that it was because I had laid over the clamps of those doors garlic, which the undead cannot bear, and other things which they shun. Last night, there was no exodus, so tonight before sundown I took away my garlic and other things, and so we find this coffin empty. But bear with me, so far there is much that is strange. Wait you with me outside, unseen and unheard, and things much stranger are yet to be. So, here he shut the darks of his lantern. Now to the outside. He opened the door, and we filed out, he coming last and locking the door behind him. It seems fresh and pure in the light. It's pure in the night air after the terror of what vault. How sweet it was to see the clouds race by and the passing gleams of the moonlight between the scuddling clouds crossing and passing, like the gladness and sorrow of a man's life. How sweet it was to breathe the fresh air that had no taint of death and decay. How humanizing to see the red lighting of the sky beyond the hill, and to hear far away the muffled roar that marks the life of a great city. Each in his own way was solemn and overcome. Arthur was silent, and was, I could see, striving to grasp the purpose and the inner meaning of the mystery. I was myself tolerably patient, and half inclined again to throw aside doubt and to accept Van Helsing's conclusions. Quincy Morris was phlegmatic in the way of a man who accepts all things and accepts them in the spirit of cool bravery, with hazard of all that he has at stake. Not being able to smoke, he cut himself a good-sized plug of tobacco and began to chew. As to Van Helsing, he was employed in a definite way. First he took from his bag a mass of what like thin Vaporlife biscuit, which was rolled up in a white napkin. Next he took out a double handful of some whitish stuff, like dough or putty. He crumbed up the wafer fine, and worked it into the mass between his hands. This he then took, and rolled it into thin strips, beginning to lay them into the crevices between the door and in the setting in the tomb. I was somewhat puzzled at this. Megan Close asked him what it was that he was doing. Arthur and Quincy drew in also, as they too were curious. He answered, "I'm closing the tomb so that the undead may not enter." "Is that the stuff you have there going to do it?" "It is." What is it that which you are using?" This time the question was by Arthur. Van Helsing reverently lifted his head as he answered, "The host. I brought it from Amsterdam. I have an indulgence." It was an answer that appalled the most skeptical of us. We felt individually that in the presence of such earnest purpose as the professor's, a purpose which could thus use the to him most sacred of things, it was impossible to distrust. Respectful silence, we took the places assigned to us close round the tomb, but hidden from the sight of anyone approaching. I pitied the others, especially Arthur. I had myself been apprenticed by my former visit to this watching hour, and yet I, who had up to an hour ago repudiated the proofs, felt my heart sink within me. Never did tombs look so ghastly white. Never did cypress or yew or juniper seem the embodiment of funeral gloom, nor did tree or grass wave or so rustle so ominously. Never did bough creak so mysteriously, and never did the faraway howling of dogs send such a woeful presage through the night. There was a long spell of silence, big, aching void, and then from the professor a keen he pointed, and far down the avenue of yews we saw a white figure advance, a dim white figure, which held something dark at its breast. The figure stopped, and at the moment a ray of moonlight fell upon the mass of driving clouds, and showed in startling prominence a dark-haired woman, dressed in the cerements of the grave. We could not see the face, for it was bent down over that which we saw to be a fair-haired child. There was a pause and a sharp little cry, such as a child gives in sleep, or as a dog as it lies before the fire and dreams. We starting forward, but the professor's warning hand saw by us as he stood behind a yew tree, kept us back. Then, as we looked, the white figure moved forwards again. It was now near enough for us to see clearly, and the moonlight still ahead. My own heart grew cold as ice, as I could hear the gasp of Arthur, as he recognized the features of Lucy Westenra. Lucy Westenra, but yet how changed. The sweetness was turned to adamantine, heartless cruelty, and the purity to voluptuous wantonness. Van Helsing stepped out, and obedient to his gesture, we all advanced too. The four of us ranged in a line before the door of the tomb. Van Helsing raised his lantern and drew the slide. But the concentrated light fell on Lucy's face. We could see that the lips were crimson with fresh blood, that the stream had trickled over her chin and stained the purity of her lawn death robe. We shuddered with horror. I could see by the tremulous light that even if Helsing's iron nerves had failed, Arthur was next to me, and if I had not seized his arm and held up, he would have fallen. When Lucy, I called the thing that was before us Lucy because it bore her shape, saw us, she drew back with an angry snarl, such as a cat gives when taken unawares. Then her eyes ranged over us, Lucy's eye in form and color, but Lucy's eyes unclean and full of hellfire, instead of the pure, gentle orbs we knew. That moment, the remnant of my love passed into hate and loathing. Had she then to be killed, I would have done it with savage delight. As she looked, her eyes blazed with unholy light, and the face became wreathed with a voluptuous smile. God, how it made me shudder to see it. The careless motion she flung to the ground, callous as a devil, the child that now she had clutched strenuously to her breast, growling over it as a dog growls over a bone. The child gave a sharp cry and lay there moaning. There was a cold-bloodedness in the act which wrung a groan from Arthur. When she advanced to him with outstretched arms and a wanton smile, he fell back and hid his face into his hands. She still advanced, however. With languorous, voluptuous grace, said, "Come to me, Arthur. Leave these others and come to me. My arms are hungry for you. Come and we can rest together. Come, my husband, come." There was something diabolically sweet at her tones, something of the tinkling of glass when struck, which rang through the brains even of those who heard the words addressed to another. As for Arthur, he seemed under a spell. Moving his hands from his face, he opened wide his arms. She was leaping for them, when Van Helsing sprang forward, and held between them his little golden crucifix. She recoiled from it, and with a sudden distorted face full of rage, dashed past him as if to enter the tomb. When within her fitted to the door, however, she stopped, as if arrested by some irresistible force. Then she turned, and her face was shown in the clear burst of moonlight and by the lamp, which had now no quiver from Van Helsing's nerves. Never did I see such baffled malice on a face, and never, I trust, shall such ever be seen again by mortal eyes. The beautiful color became livid, the eyes seemed to throw out sparks of hellfire, the brows were wrinkled as though the flesh were the coils of Medusa's snakes. The lovely, blood-stained mouth grew to an open snare, as in the passion masks of the Greeks and the Japanese. If her face meant death, if looks could kill, we saw it at that moment. And so for a full half-minute, it seemed an eternity, she remained between the lifted crucifix and the sacred closing of her means of entry. Van Helsing broke the silence by asking Arthur, "Answer me, my friend. Am I to proceed in my work?" "Do as you will, friend. Do as you will. There can be no horde like this ever any more." And he groaned in spirit. Quincy and I just moved towards us and took his arms. We could hear the click of the closing lantern as Van Helsing held it down. Coming close to the tomb, he began to remove the chinks, some of the sacred emblem which he had placed there. We all looked on with horrified amazement, as we saw, when he stood back, the woman with a corporeal body as real as our own, passed through the interstice, where scarce a knife blade could have gone. We all felt a glad sense of relief when we saw the professor calmly restoring the strings of putty to the shelf of the door. When this was done, he lifted the child and said, "Come now, my friends. We can do no more till tomorrow. There is a funeral at noon, so here we shall all come before long. To that, the friends of the dead will all be gone by 2, and when the sexton locks the gate, we shall remain. Then there is more to do, not like this of tonight. For this little one, he is not much harmed. By tomorrow night he shall be well. We shall leave him where the police will find him, as on the other night, and then to home." Coming close to Arthur, he said, "My friend Arthur, you have had a sore trial. But after, when you look back, you'll see how it's necessary. You are now in the bitter water as my child. By this time tomorrow you will, please God, have passed them, and have drunk of the sweet waters. So do not mourn over much. Till then, I shall not ask you to forgive me." Arthur and Quincy came home with me, and we tried to cheer each other on the way. We had left behind the child in safety, and we were tired. So we all slept with more or less reality of sleep. September night, the 29th of September night. A little before 12 o'clock, we three, Arthur, Quincy Morris, and myself, called for the professor. It was odd to notice that by common consent, we had all put on black clothes. Of course, Arthur wore black, for he was in deep mourning, but the rest of us wore it by instinct. We got to the graveyard by 1:30 and strolled about, keeping out of official observation, so that when the grave diggers had completed their task, and the sexton, under belief that everyone had gone, had locked the gate, we had the place all to ourselves. Van Helsing, instead of his little black bag, had with him a long leather one, something like a cricketing bag. It was manifestly of fair weight. We were alone, and had heard the last of the footsteps die out to the road. We silently, as if by ordered intention, followed the professor to the tomb. He unlocked the door, and we entered, closing it behind us. Then he took from his bag the lantern, which he lit, and also 2 wax candles, which, when lighted, he struck by melting their own ends on other coffins, so that they might give light sufficient to work by. When we again lifted the lid off Lucy's coffin, we all looked, Arthur trembling like an aspen, and saw the corpse lay there in all its death beauty. But there was no love in my own heart, nothing but loathing for the foul thing which had taken Lucy's shape without her soul. I could see even Arthur's face grow hard as he looked. Presently he said to Van Helsing, "Is this really Lucy's body, or only a demon in her shape?" "It is her body, and yet not it. But wait a while, and you shall see her as she was and is." She seemed like a nightmare of Lucy as she lay there, the pointed teeth, the blood-stained, voluptuous mouth, which made one shudder to see, the whole carnal and unspirited appearance, seeming like a devilish mockery of Lucy's sweet purity. Van Helsing, with his usual methodicalness, began taking the various contents from his bag and placing them ready for use. First he took out a soldering iron and some plumbing solder, and then small oil lamp, which gave out, when lit in corner of the tomb, gas which burned at a fierce heat with a blue flame. Then his operating knives, which he placed to hand, and last, a round wooden stake, some 2.5 or 3 inches thick and about 3 feet long. One end of it was hardened by charring in the fire, and was sharpened to a fine point. With this stake came a heavy hammer, such as in households is used in the coal cellar for breaking the lumps. To me, a doctor's preparations for work of any kind are stimulating and bracing, but the effect of these things on both Arthur and Quincy was to cause them a sort of consternation. They both, however, kept their courage and remained silent and quiet. When all was ready, Van Helsing said, "Are we doing anything? Let me tell you this. Out of the lore and experience of the ancients and of all those who have studied the powers of the undead, when they became such, there comes with the change of the curse of immortality. They cannot die, but they must go on age after age, adding new victims and multiplying the evils of the world. For all that die from the preying of the undead become themselves undead, and prey on their kind. And so the circle goes on ever widening, like as the ripples from a stone thrown in the water. Friend Arthur, if you had met the kiss which you know of before Lucy died, or again, last night, when you opened your arms to her, you would in time, when you had died, have become Nosferatu, as they call it in Eastern Europe, and would for all times make more of those undeads that so have filled us with horror. The career of so unhappy dear lady is but just begun. Those children, whose blood she sucked, are not as yet as much the worse, but if she lives on, undead more and more may lose their blood. By our power over them they come to her, and so she draw their blood with that so wicked mouth. But if she die in truth, then all cease. The tiny wounds at the throats disappear, and they go back to their play, knowing ever of what has been. But of the most blessed of all, when the still undead be made to rest as true dead, the soul of the poor lady whom we love shall again be free, instead of working wickedness by night and growing more debased in that assimilating of it by day. She shall take her place with the other angels. So that, my friend, it be a blessing hand for her that shall strike the blow that sets her free. To this I am willing, but is there none amongst us who has a better right? Will it be no joy to think of hereafter, in the silence of the night when sleep is not? It was my hand that sent her to the stars. It was the hand of him that loved her, the hand of all she would herself have chosen, had it been her to choose. Tell me, if there be such a one amongst us." We all looked at Arthur. He saw too, what we all did, the infinite kindness which suggested that this should be the hand which should restore Lucy to us as a holy and not an unholy memory. He stepped forward and said bravely, though his hand trembled and his face was as pale as snow, "My true friend, from the bottom of my broken heart I thank you. Tell me what I am to do, and I shall not falter." Van Helsing laid a hand on his shoulder and said, "Brave lad, courage in it is done. This stake must be driven through her. It will be a fearful ordeal. Be not deceived in that, but it will only be for a short time. And you will then rejoice as more than your pain was great. From this grim tomb you have emerged as though you tread on air. But you must not falter when once you have begun. Only think that we, your true friends, are around you, and that we pray for you all the time." "Go on," said Arthur Wesley. "Tell me what to do." "Take this stick in your left hand, be to place the point over the heart, and the hammer in your right. Then we begin our prayer for the dead. I shall read him. I have here the book, and others shall follow. Strike in God's name, so that all may be well with the dead that we love, and that the undead pass away." Arthur took the stake in hammer, and when once his mind was set on his action, his hands never trembled nor even quivered. Van Helsing opened his missal and began to read, and Quincy and I followed as well we could. Arthur placed the point over the heart. As I looked, I could see its dent in the white flesh. Then he struck with all his might. The thing in the coffin writhed, and a hideous blood-curdling screech came from the opened red lips. The body shook and quivered and twisted in wild contortions. The sharp white teeth champed together till the lips were cut, and the mouth was smeared with a crimson foam. But Arthur never faltered. He looked like a figure of Thor as his untrembling arm rose and fell, driving deeper and deeper the mercy-bearing stake, whilst the blood from the pierced heart welled and spurted up around it. His face was set, and high duty seemed to shine through it. The sight of it gave us courage, and their voices seemed to ring through the little vault. And then the writhing and quivering of the body became less, and the teeth seemed to champ, and the face to quiver. Finally it lay still. The terrible task was over. The hammer fell from Arthur's hand. He reeled and would have fallen. had we not caught him. The great drops of sweat sprang from his forehead, and his breath came in broken gas. It had indeed been an awful strain on him, had he not been forced to his task by more than human considerations, he could never have gone through with it. For a few minutes we were so taken up with him, did not look towards the coffin. When we did, however, a murmur of startled surprise rang from one to the other of us. We gazed so eagerly that Arthur rose, for he had been seated on the ground, came and looked too, and then a glad strange light broke over his face and dispelled altogether the gloom of horror that lay upon it. There in the coffin lay no longer the foul thing that we so dreaded and groaned to hate, that the work of our destruction was yielded as a privilege to the one best entitled to it, but Lucy as we had seen her in life, with her face of unequaled sweetness and purity. True that there was there, as we had seen them in life, the traces of care and pain and waste, but these were all dear to us, for they marked her truth in that we knew. One and for all we felt that the holy calm that lay like sunshine over the wasted face and form was only an earthly token and symbol of the calm that was to reign forever. Van Helsing came and laid his hand on Arthur's shoulder and said to him, "And now, Arthur, my friend, dear lad, am I not forgiven?" The reaction of the terrible strain came as he took the old man's hand in his, rising to his lips, pressed it and said, "Forgiven. God bless you that you have given my dear one her soul again and me peace." He put his hands on the professor's shoulder and laying his head on his breast cried for a while silently, whilst we stood unmoving. When he raised his head, Van Helsing said to him, "Now, my child, you may kiss her. Kiss her dead lips if you will, as she would have you to do, if for her to choose. For she is not a grinning devil now, not any more a foul thing for all eternity. No longer is she the devil's undead. She is God's true dead, whose soul is with him." Arthur bent and kissed her, and then we sent him and Quincy out of the tomb. The professor and I sawed the top off the stake, leaving the point of it in the body. Then we cut off the head and filled the mouth with garlic. We soldered out the leaden coffin, screwed on the coffin lid, and gathered up our belongings, came away. When the professor locked the door, he gave the key to Arthur. Outside the air was sweet, the sun shone, and the birds sang, and it seemed as if all nature were tuned to a different pitch. There was gladness and mirth and peace everywhere, for we were at rest ourselves on one account, and we were glad, though it was with a tempered joy. Before we moved away, Van Helsing said, "Now, my friends, one step of our work is done, one of the most harrowing to ourselves, but there remains a greater task, to find out the author of all this our sorrow, and to stamp him out. I have clues which we can follow, but it is a long task and a difficult one, and there is danger in it and pain. She will not all help me. We have learned to believe, all of us, is it not so? And since so, do we not see our duty? Yes, do we not promise to go on to the bitter end?" Each in turn we took his hand, and the promise was made. Then said the professor as we moved off, "2 nights hence you shall meet with me and dine together at 7 o'clock with friend John. I shall entreat with 2 others, 2 that you know not as yet. I shall be ready for our work show, and our plans unfold. Friend John, you come with me home, and I have much to consult with you about, and you can help me. Tonight I leave for Amsterdam, but shall return tomorrow night. Then begins our great quest. But first, I shall have much to say, so that you may know what to do and to dread. Then our promise shall be made to each other anew, for there is a terrible task before us, and once our feet are on the plowshare, we must not draw back." That is the end of chapter 16. Though I think I'm gonna call it for tonight. The reading for tonight. Yeah. How many chapters? Okay. Could we just finish 16? There's 27. So what? I guess we're about like 2/3 of the way through, I think. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I think we're gonna end the reading for night. So ready to join me next time.